Commander Sarah Chun stood on the edge of Broken Ridge and watched the sky burn. 27 ships tore through the atmosphere, trailing fire like falling stars. But these weren't meteors. These were dragons. She'd seen the footage from other worlds. Massive creatures with scales that shrugged off plasma fire, claws that tore through steel, and breath hot enough to melt rock. They'd conquered 40 species across 100 worlds. Now they'd come for humanity's newest colony. The Galactic Council had already written them off. The message had been clear. Evacuate if you can, surrender if you must. Dragons always win. Sarah looked at the 300 Marines standing behind her. Young faces, old weapons, and nowhere to run. The evacuation ships had left 2 days ago, packed with civilians. These soldiers had stayed because someone had to buy time for the transport fleet to escape the system. "Check your ammunition," she called out. Her voice carried across the ridge. "Double-check your firing positions. And remember what we learned from the training vids." They had exactly one advantage. 6 months ago, a human merchant ship had stumbled across a dragon feeding on a dead whale-like creature in deep space. The ship's science officer had recorded everything before jumping away. That footage showed something important. Dragons had weak spots, where their wing membranes connected to their shoulder joints. The skin there was thinner, more flexible. It had to be, or they couldn't fly. It wasn't much, but it was something. The first dragon landed a kilometer away. The ground shook like an earthquake. He was massive, easily the size of a cargo hauler, with scales the color of fresh blood. His eyes gleamed with ancient intelligence and absolute confidence. "I am Infrax the Eternal," the dragon's voice boomed across the valley. The translator in Sarah's ear rendered his words into flat, emotionless English. "Conqueror of the Vesali, destroyer of the Kelth armadas. You will kneel or you will burn." Sarah raised her hand. Behind her, 300 railguns locked onto target. The weapons were old military surplus, bought cheap because they were outdated. Kinetic weapons in an age of plasma and lasers. The Galactic Council had laughed at humanity's choice, but railguns didn't care about energy shields. And they hit hard. "We don't kneel," Sarah said into her cum. Then she dropped her hand. 300 tungsten slugs flew at hypersonic speeds. Infrax's scales deflected most of them, sparks flying as metal met ancient armor. But Sarah had trained her people well. 70 shots struck the wing joints. The thin membrane tore like paper. Infrax roared. It was a sound of pain and surprise and rage. He tried to launch himself into the air, to rain fire from above as he'd done 1,000 times before. His wings beat once, twice. Then he crashed back to Earth, one wing hanging useless. For the first time in 3,000 years, Infrax the Eternal was grounded. He charged. The Earth trembled with each step. His mouth opened, revealing flames building in his throat. Sarah's people scattered, diving into the trenches they'd dug across the ridge. Fire washed over their positions, turning sand to glass. But humans were small. Humans could hide. And humans could be patient. As Infrax passed over the first trench, a dozen Marines emerged behind him. They carried the heavy weapons, the ones that took 2 people to lift. They aimed for the back legs, for the joints where scale met scale. More railgun fire. More blood. Infrax stumbled, surprised that these tiny creatures dared to hurt him. He spun, his tail whipping through the air. 3 Marines died instantly, crushed by the impact. 5 more were thrown like dolls, but now his back was turned. Sarah stood in her trench with a targeting laser. She painted the dragon's other wing joint with a red dot. "Fire mission," she said calmly into the cum. Coordinates locked. The mortar fired. Humanity had learned a lot about making things explode in the last 500 years. The shells weren't sophisticated. They were just very, very powerful. And Sarah had aimed them perfectly. The explosions tore through Infrax's second wing. Now he couldn't fly at all. Now he was just a very large, very angry animal trapped on the ground with 300 determined humans. The battle lasted 3 days. Other dragons landed to help their leader, but Broken Ridge was a natural choke point. Sarah's people used the terrain, used their size, used every dirty trick that 4,000 years of human warfare had taught them. They collapsed tunnels on dragons. They lured them into kill zones. They shot their eyes, their mouths, their wing joints. They learned fast, adapted fast or died. When a dragon breathed fire, they hid. When a dragon charged, they scattered. When a dragon turned its back, they attacked. 273 humans died. Sarah watched each death, remembered each name. They died buying seconds, buying inches, buying one more chance to bring down a monster. But monsters could die. That was the lesson of Broken Ridge. On the third day, as the sun rose over a battlefield covered in blood and ash, Infrax the Eternal breathed his last. 5 more dragons lay dead around him. The others had fled during the night. Wounded and afraid, Sarah stood on the body of the first dragon humanity had ever killed. She was covered in blood and dust. Her armor was scorched. Half her people were dead, but they'd won. She activated her comm, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the human colony at Broken Ridge. To anyone listening, dragons can bleed. Dragons can die. And humanity will not kneel. The message spread across the galaxy in hours. And in the dark places where dragons gathered, a new word entered their ancient language. A word that meant dangerous prey. A word that meant capable of killing gods. The word was human. Dr. James Morrison hadn't slept in 47 hours. He stood in the research lab 3 levels below Geneva, staring at the corpse of Infrax the Eternal. The dragon had been transported to Earth in pieces, frozen and carefully preserved. Now he lay spread across 12 examination tables, a puzzle of scales and bone and ancient flesh. "Coffee," Morrison said without looking away from the monitor. His assistant handed him a cup. He drank it cold without noticing. The genetic data scrolled across his screen in endless columns. Dragon DNA was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. They were biologically immortal. Their cells regenerated perfectly, never degrading, never aging. Their bones were denser than titanium. Their scales incorporated metallic elements that made them nearly indestructible. But there was something else. Something that made Morrison smile despite his exhaustion. Dragons hadn't evolved in millions of years. They hadn't needed to. They were perfect predators, apex creatures with no natural enemies. Evolution was driven by pressure, by the need to adapt or die. Dragons had stopped adapting long ago. Humanity had never stopped adapting. That was their nature. Every generation faced new challenges, new diseases, new enemies. Adapt or die. Learn or perish. Change or be left behind. "We can kill them," Morrison said quietly. "We just need to be smarter." His assistant looked up from her terminal. "The military wants weapons recommendations by tomorrow. What do we tell them?" Morrison pulled up his notes. 3 days of desperate research, of testing scale samples and analyzing muscle tissue. 3 days of finding weaknesses in creatures that had no weaknesses. "Tell them we need 3 things," he said. "First, high-frequency sonic weapons. Dragon inner ears are incredibly sensitive. They need that for flight navigation. Hit them with the right frequency, and they lose spatial awareness. They crash." His assistant typed rapidly. "Second, extreme cold. Their metabolism runs hot. They need that heat for fire breath. Cryo-weapons will slow them down, make their joints stiff, freeze their wing joints, and they can't fly. And third," Morrison zoomed in on a scan of dragon scale structure. depleted uranium rounds, armor-piercing, high-density penetrators. The scales overlap like roof tiles. There are gaps between them, tiny spaces where softer tissue shows through. Hit those gaps with enough force and we can punch through. He looked up at his assistant. We call it the Hunter Protocol, and we train every human to use it. The dragons came 4 months later. Not a raiding party this time. A full talent strike force. 12 elder dragons, each over 10,000 years old. They'd burned worlds to ash. They'd shattered fleets. They'd never been defeated. They came for Earth itself. Morrison watched from a command bunker as the dragons entered Earth's atmosphere. The defensive fleet engaged them in orbit, buying time. Human ships were smaller, faster. They harried the dragons like wolves around a bear. 3 ships were destroyed by dragon fire. But they bought Earth 15 precious minutes. 15 minutes for the ground. Forces to deploy. Morrison had spent those 4 months well. Every major city now had dragon defense batteries. Every military unit had trained with the new weapons. Every civilian shelter had been reinforced. Humanity had turned their homeworld into a fortress. The first dragon, a massive silver beast named Korvax, dove toward New York. Anti-air batteries opened up, filling the sky with depleted uranium rounds. Most bounced off his scales, but some found the gaps. Korvax roared and climbed higher, blood trailing from a dozen small wounds. Then the sonic weapons activated. Massive speakers positioned on every tall building, all tuned to the exact frequency that disrupted dragon equilibrium. Korvax's flight pattern stuttered. He banked left when he meant to go right. He climbed when he wanted to dive. Hunter teams were ready. Soldiers with portable cryo-launchers fired in coordinated volleys. Ice spread across Korvax's wings. The membranes grew stiff. His wing beats slowed. He fell out of the sky and crashed into Central Park. The impact left a crater 30 meters wide. Before he could recover, teams swarmed him. Railguns firing at point-blank range. Cryo-weapons freezing his joints. Sonic weapons keeping him disoriented. Korvax, the Silver, died in 17 minutes. The battle raged for 2 days across 3 continents. Dragons burned Tokyo. They shattered Mumbai. They reduced half of Cairo to rubble. Millions of humans died in fire and destruction. But every dragon that landed faced the same coordinated response. Sonic weapons to disorient. Cryo-weapons to slow. Armor-piercing rounds to kill. The Hunter Protocol worked. Slowly, painfully, at terrible cost, it worked. Morrison watched the reports come in from his bunker. Dragon down in Berlin. Dragon down in São Paulo. Dragon fleeing from Moscow, wounded and afraid. The unthinkable was happening. Dragons were losing. On the second day, 8 dragons lay dead. The remaining 4, including the strike force leader, gathered in the Pacific. Morrison listened to their communication, translated by the captured dragon tech from Broken Ridge. "Retreat," the leader said. His voice carried pain and fear. "These creatures are not prey. They are hunters. Retreat while we still can." The 4 dragons fled Earth's atmosphere. They didn't stop until they jumped to faster than light speed. For the first time in galactic history, dragons had been defeated in open warfare. Morrison stood among the ruins of Geneva and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, dragons were spreading the word. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity could kill. The galaxy was changing. The predators had learned fear. And prey had learned to hunt. Morrison activated his comm and connected to the Galactic Council's public channel. "This is Dr. James Morrison of Earth. To all species under dragon protection, they can be beaten. We'll show you how. To all dragons listening, leave us alone or learn what Infrax learned." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Humanity doesn't want war, but we won't accept subjugation. The age of dragons is ending. The age of equals is beginning. The message spread across 1,000 worlds. And in the dark between stars, dragons gathered and spoke a new word with fear and respect. Human. Captain Marcus Webb floated in zero gravity, studying the star chart projected before him. 6 months had passed since the battle for Earth. 6 months since dragons learned to fear. Now it was time for humanity to press their advantage. Target acquired, his navigator said. Dragon breeding world, designation Nest 7. It's hidden in a nebula, just like the intelligence suggested. Marcus nodded slowly. The captured dragons from Earth had talked eventually. Not from torture. Humanity didn't need that. They talked because they were tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of running. Tired of the endless cycle of dominance and fear. One dragon, a young male named Zeth, had provided star charts to 17 dragon-breeding worlds. Secret places where dragons laid their eggs, where young dragons learned to fly and breathe fire. Places they thought no other species could find. Zeth had spoken quietly in his cell. You won. We accept that. But my people will never stop fighting while their eggs are unprotected. They'll destroy your worlds one by one, even if it kills every dragon in existence. That's how we are. Marcus had asked the obvious question. What would make them stop? Show them their eggs are already vulnerable. Show them you could destroy the next generation but choose not to. Then they'll listen. So now Marcus commanded humanity's first deep space hunter-killer fleet. 12 ships, small and fast, crewed by volunteers. Their mission wasn't to destroy. It was to prove they could. Take us in, Marcus ordered. Silent running. Passive sensors only. Let's see what we're dealing with. The fleet glided through the nebula like sharks through dark water. The gases played hell with long-range sensors, which is why dragons had chosen this place. But human ships had something dragons never expected: patience. They waited. They watched. They learned the patrol patterns. 3 adult dragons circled the breeding world, guards protecting the nest. On the planet below, thermal imaging showed massive heat signatures. Eggs, hundreds of them, buried in volcanic sand, incubating an Earth-like heat. We could take this world, Marcus's weapons officer said. 3 dragons. We've killed more than that. That's not the mission, Marcus replied. He activated his comm on the dragon frequency. Attention, dragon guards. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the human fleet. We are currently in orbit around your breeding world. We have mapped all egg locations. We have weapons locked. The 3 dragons scrambled, breathing fire into space, searching for targets they couldn't see. Human ships were designed for stealth. Dragon eyes were meant for atmosphere and visible prey. Marcus continued, his voice calm. We're not here to destroy. We're here to deliver a message. Your conclave planned a war of extinction against humanity. You wanted to wipe us out because we could kill dragons. So we've come to show you something. He uploaded the data packet. Star charts showing all 17 breeding worlds. Thermal maps of egg locations. Attack plans that could destroy the next 3 generations of dragons. We know where your children are, Marcus said. We could end your species in a day. But we won't. Not if you stop attacking human worlds. Not if you withdraw from the Galactic Council's territories. Not if you agree to peace. One dragon, older than the others, spoke. His voice trembled with rage and fear. You dare threaten our eggs? We will burn your worlds to ash. You tried that, Marcus said quietly. Earth still stands. 8 of your elders are dead. We're not threatening. We're offering a choice. Peace or extinction. Not today, but eventually. How many more dragons need to die before you accept it? He cut the transmission and ordered the fleet to jump. Let the dragons think about it. Let them spread the word. Humanity could reach anywhere. Nowhere was safe. Over the next 3 months, human hunter teams visited 9 more breeding worlds. Each time, the message was the same. We could destroy you, but we won't. Choose peace. But Marcus knew the message alone wouldn't be enough. Dragons didn't understand mercy without strength. So when a dragon raiding party attacked a human mining colony, Marcus took his fleet to intercept. The battle was brief and brutal. 4 dragons versus 12 human ships. The dragons fought well, fought bravely, but they fought tactics that were 10,000 years old. Humanity had evolved beyond old tactics. Human ships separated, forced the dragons to split their attention. Cryo-missiles froze wing joints. Railgun fire punched through scale gaps. Sonic weapons broadcast on frequencies that made dragons flee rather than fight. 3 dragons died. 1 escaped, wounded and terrified. But Marcus wasn't done. He'd been researching dragon culture during the long flights between stars. He'd learned about their hordes, their pride, their need to prove dominance through accumulated wealth. When his fleet reached the dead dragon's horde world, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of claiming the treasure, he distributed it. Sent coordinates to the Galactic Council with a simple message. These hordes belong to dragons who enslaved your worlds. The wealth is yours. Take it. Rebuild. The galaxy exploded with activity. Species that had suffered under dragon rule for millennia suddenly had the resources to reclaim their freedom. The dragons had kept them poor, kept them dependent. Now they could stand on their own, and humanity received a flood of communications. Thank you. Thank you. You've freed us. How can we help? Marcus smiled grimly. Humanity hadn't wanted to be galactic heroes. They just wanted to survive. But the galaxy had needed someone to break the cycle. Someone to prove that dragons weren't invincible. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in recorded history, they voted to censure the dragons. Not to attack them, but to isolate them. No trade, no diplomacy, no protection deals. Dragons had maintained their power through fear and economic pressure. Both were gone now. Marcus received a transmission from Earth. It was Dr. Morrison, looking older and more tired than Marcus remembered. You've done well, Marcus. But there's something you need to know. We've been interrogating captured dragons. They didn't just rule through force. They've been harvesting the young from species they protected. The brightest children, the most talented youth. Taken every generation. Marcus felt sick. Why? Dragon immortality isn't biological. It's stolen. They consume intelligent beings to extend their lives. The Council knew. They've known for centuries. They allowed it because dragons offered protection from worse threats. Marcus looked at the star chart, at the hundreds of worlds marked under dragon influence. How many children had been taken? How many species had sacrificed their future for protection they could have provided themselves? Release the data, Marcus said. All of it. Let the galaxy know what dragons really are. Morrison nodded. It'll mean total war. Dragons won't surrender if they think extinction is coming. Then we'd better make sure we win, Marcus replied. The truth spread across the galaxy in days. Species that had worshipped dragons now called for their extinction. The Council put bounties on dragon heads. Pirates and mercenaries joined human hunter fleets. The dragons, desperate and cornered, did the unthinkable. They unified. Every flight, every territory, every ancient elder. They formed the Dragon Conclave and declared a war of extinction, not against humanity alone, against everyone who had turned against them. Marcus watched the intelligence reports flood in. Over 300 dragons, gathering for one final assault. The largest dragon army in galactic history. "Get me every ship we have," he told his crew. Human, council, mercenary, everyone. This is it. The final battle. His navigator looked nervous. 300 dragons, sir. Even with the protocol, even with everything we've learned. I know, Marcus said. But we don't have a choice. If we run, they'll burn the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the war room and looked at the tactical display. 3 years since Broken Ridge. 3 years since she'd learned that dragons could die. Now she commanded humanity's combined fleet, preparing for the battle that would decide everything. 300 dragons versus every ship the galaxy could muster. The odds weren't good. Intelligence update, her tactical officer said. The Dragon Conclave is gathering at the Void's Edge system. They're using it as a staging ground. They'll launch their assault in 72 hours. Sarah studied the map. Void's Edge was a dead system. Nothing but asteroids and a dying star. Smart choice. No civilians to worry about. Plenty of space to maneuver. Dragons thought like predators. They wanted open ground for a final confrontation. We'll give them what they want, Sarah said. Every combat-ready ship proceeds to Void's Edge. We'll meet them there. Her second-in-command frowned. Admiral, we're outnumbered. Even with the Hunter Protocol, 300 dragons all at once. I know the math, Sarah said quietly. But what choice do we have? If we wait, they'll come for Earth, for every human world. Better to fight now in a place where we can't lose civilians. Over the next 3 days, ships poured into the Void's Edge system. Human warships, sleek and deadly. Council vessels, older but still dangerous. Mercenary fleets looking for bounty money. Even a few species who just wanted revenge against the dragons who'd ruled them. 2,000 ships total, against 300 dragons. It should have been enough. But Sarah had seen what one dragon could do. She'd fought Infrax. She knew. The dragons arrived like a nightmare made real. They came through jump points and waves, massive forms blotting out the stars. Red scales and black, silver and gold, ancient creatures who'd seen civilizations rise and fall. They flew in perfect formation, centuries of coordination making them move as one. All ships, Sarah broadcast on every frequency. Remember your training. Sonic weapons first to break formation. Cryo missiles on the wings. Armor-piercing rounds on the joints. Stay mobile. Make them chase you. Don't bunch up. The battle began. Dragons breath fire across the void. Ships melted, crews dying in seconds. But for every ship that died, 3 more attacked from different angles. Humanity had learned pack tactics. Learned to swarm. Learned to sacrifice. Sarah watched her tactical display as the battle evolved. Humans were dying. Ships exploding. Friends burning. But dragons were dying too. Falling to coordinated fire. Brought down by technology they didn't understand and tactics they'd never faced. The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and death and desperate fighting. Sarah's flagship took damage. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. Life support failing. She kept giving orders. By the 8th hour, the tide turned. Not dramatically, just slowly, gradually. Humans were adapting faster than dragons could respond. Every dragon that died taught the survivors new tricks. Where to shoot, when to dodge, how to survive. Dragons started fleeing. First 1, then 5, then 20. The ancient creatures who'd ruled the galaxy for millennia broke formation and ran. It was over. Sarah counted the cost. 800 ships destroyed. 40,000 crew dead. But 270 dragons dead too. Only 30 had escaped. The Dragon Conclave was shattered. She was about to order pursuit when a new transmission came through. Not military frequency. Public broadcast. Available to everyone in the galaxy. This is Valdrothrax, the World Ender. The voice was old, older than stars, heavy with the weight of ages. Eldest of dragons, I offered challenge. Single combat. One dragon against one human. If I win, dragons are left in peace to fade away. If I lose, I am myself, and the Dragon Age ends. Do you accept? Sarah wanted to say no. Wanted to press the advantage. Wanted to hunt down every last dragon. But something in that ancient voice gave her pause. This wasn't a trick. This was surrender with dignity. Where? She asked. Coordinates transmitted. Come alone. Bring your champion. Sarah looked at her crew. Every one of them volunteered. But she shook her head. Not soldiers. Not this time. She contacted Dr. James Morrison on Earth. Morrison arrived 3 days later, stepping out of a shuttle onto a barren world at the edge of known space. He wore no armor, carried no weapons. Just a scientist, middle-aged and tired, walking to meet the last great dragon. Valdrothrax waited on a plain of black rock. He was enormous, easily twice the size of Infrax. His scales were obsidian, his eyes like molten gold. He'd lived for 50,000 years. He'd seen species evolve and die. He'd burned worlds and destroyed fleets. You're not a warrior, Valdrothrax said. His voice shook the ground. No, Morrison agreed. I'm the one who figured out how to kill you. Seemed appropriate. They could have fought. Morrison had a panic button. One signal and a fleet would glass this planet. But he didn't reach for it. Instead, he sat down on a rock. Why did you challenge us? Valdrothrax asked. We didn't. You came to our world, expecting us to kneel. We don't kneel. Neither did we once. The dragon's voice was soft now, almost sad. 50,000 years ago, we were prey. There were beings in the galaxy that hunted us. Massive creatures that swallowed stars. We learned to fight. Learned to kill. Learned to dominate. We thought if we were strong enough, we'd never be prey again. Morrison nodded slowly. And now you're prey again. Must be terrifying. Yes. Valdrothrax lowered his massive head. I've lived too long. Seen too much. I remember when dragons had honor. When we protected instead of exploited. When we earned respect instead of demanding fear. But power corrupts. Even dragons. Especially dragons, Morrison said. You stopped evolving. Stopped growing. Stopped learning. You became what you feared. And you? Morrison thought about that. We're still learning. Still growing. Still making mistakes. But we refuse to be anyone's prey. And we refuse to become predators like you were. Valdrothrax was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of decision. I will not fight you. I surrender. But I offer something better than my death. What? Knowledge. I remember things your species has never known. Technologies lost to time. Threats lurking in dark space. I can teach you. Prepare you. Help you become what dragons should have been. Morrison stood slowly. Why would you do that? Because every apex species eventually meets something stronger. You killed dragons. But there are worse things out in the dark. Things even I fear. If humanity is to become the new apex species, you'll need to be ready. Morrison activated his comm. Admiral Chun, are you hearing this? Sarah's voice came back immediately. Every word. Your call, Admiral. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, can we trust him? Valdrothrax laughed, a sound like thunder. No, but you can contain me. Study me. Learn from me. I'm old and tired. Let me end my days teaching instead of dying. Sarah made her decision. Agreed. But you'll be watched. Guarded. Any betrayal, and we end you. Understood? Understood. Morrison looked up at the massive dragon. What happens to the others? The ones who escaped? They'll hide, scatter. Some will try to rebuild. But they'll never dominate again. You've broken us. The age of dragons is over. And so began a strange new relationship. Valdrathrax was transported to a secure facility on Earth, heavily guarded, constantly monitored. But true to his word, he taught. He shared dragon technology, dragon history, dragon secrets. He trained human hunters to track the remaining dragons. Not to kill them, but to ensure they never again grew powerful enough to threaten anyone. Under human supervision, the last dragons would live as equals, not masters. Word spread across the galaxy. Humanity had defeated the dragons and then shown mercy. Humanity had proven you could be strong without being cruel. The galaxy's power structure shifted. New alliances formed. Old hierarchies crumbled, and on 1,000 worlds, parents told their children a new story. Not about dragons who ruled the stars, but about the small species who refused to kneel. About the prey that became predators. About the weak who became strong. They told the story of humanity. 3 years later, Sarah Chun stood on Broken Ridge again. A memorial now marked the spot where 273 humans had died fighting Infrax. Their names carved in stone. She'd gotten older. The war had aged her. But she'd lived to see peace. Real peace, not the fearful silence under dragon rule. Morrison joined her, his hair now completely gray. Valdrathrax wants to talk to you. Says there's something in deep space moving toward the galaxy. Something that makes dragons look like insects. Sarah smiled grimly. Of course there is. Can't let us get too comfortable. He thinks we have 50 years to prepare.